My name is Brian Smith. I live just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. And I'll start with the passing of my daughter, Shayna Elaine, who passed on June 24th of 2015. Shayna was a 15-year-old girl. She was relatively healthy. She had no life-threatening conditions that we knew about. And the morning of Wednesday, June 24th, Shayna simply didn't wake up. We went to her room to get her up and couldn't get her up. So that obviously was a shock and devastating to us. And I went on a search after that to figure out, first of all, how do I survive this? That's the first thing when something like this happens to your daughter, is just, am I going to be able to get through the next day, the next minute sometimes? So it was a matter of survival for those first few months and weeks, and managed to get by with that. And then a whole series of synchronicities began to happen. Someone emailed me and said, why don't you reach out to Mark Ireland, who was one of the co-founders of Helping Parents Heal. And Mark had written a couple of books after his son Brandon had passed away. So I reached out to Mark, and Mark and I exchanged a couple of emails. Mark was gracious enough to send me both of his books. I read those books. They helped me tremendously. And that's why I got kind of acquainted with Helping Parents Heal. So the girls, and Twana and I or my wife Ty, we used to go on vacations. The girls loved the ocean. So we would usually go to the beach during the summers. And Kayla, my older daughter, who was 19 at the time, or 18 at the time that Shayna passed, said, for our next vacation, instead of going to the beach, let's do something different, because I don't, just going to the beach without Shayna doesn't seem right. Let's do the exact opposite. Let's go to the desert. So she wanted to go to the desert. So my wife, who arranges all the trips, arranged a trip to Phoenix, Arizona. So we go to Phoenix, and as I'm making the arrangements to go to Phoenix, I realized that Elizabeth Boisson, who is the other co-founder of Helping Parents Heal, lives in Phoenix. So we were there. We met with Elizabeth. She introduced us to a couple other people in Helping Parents Heal, and we decided we wanted to become part of that organization. So Ty and I, this was, I guess, about a year after Shayna passed, almost a year, decided to start a chapter of Helping Parents Heal here in Southwest Ohio. So we did that. We started the chapter here, and that went kind of okay for about a year or so. And then we met some other people through Suzanne Giesman. We met Tracy Susi, who's one of the leaders of the online group, and Beth West. And Tracy had the idea, let's start the Helping Parents Heal online group. So we started that up, and that's grown to about 5,000 parents, I believe, as of right now. And that's been going for about 3 years, I guess. So we run the online group. The Cincinnati group, actually, we don't meet face-to-face anymore, because I spend so much time with the online group. So I've been working with Helping Parents Heal for the last 3 years or so. And through that, I have met literally hundreds, if not thousands, of parents who are going through the same thing that Ty and I are going through. And being a caring listener for Helping Parents Heal, running the online group, we have basically, usually, I guess, bi-weekly, or we have meetings a couple times a month. So in our meetings, we'll have people on that are healers, people who are mediums, people that have had near-death experiences, people who are afterlife experts. We've had Barbara on, Barbara Reed, to do Akashic Records. We have all kinds of experts in this field come through, and I have the honor and the privilege of being able to interview those people on behalf of Helping Parents Heal. So through this, and through all the reading I've done in the last 4 years, and I work with Dr. Gary Schwartz from the Soul Phone Project. So through all of this, I've gained quite a bit of experience in this field of grief. So not only having gone through it personally, but also through studies. Also co-taught a course with Terry Daniel, who just wrote a book, Grief and God, and about how toxic theology can compound your grief. So Terry and I have taught courses together. So after all this, I decided maybe I'll try to take this and put it into something that can be of service to someone. And I decided to write the book. Early on in my grief journey, I started listening to podcasts. And one of the first podcasts I listened to was by Sandra Champlain, We Don't Die Radio, or We Don't Die. And Sandra had an audio, it was about an hour-long audio that you could download and listen to. And I remember downloading that audio and listening to it, and it explained what grief is, what you can expect in grief physically and emotionally. And it was so helpful to me at that time. And those early days, you can't really read. If you try to read something, you're just in a fog. So having the audio was very helpful to me. And I remember Ty and I lying on the bed and listening to the audio together. So I decided, let me see if I can do something similar, but I wanted to expand on not just what grief is, but how do we cope with grief? And what is the purpose of all this? So that's when I decided to write Grief2Growth, that became the book. And I really wanted it to be a very short, very simple, to the point handbook on what to expect when you're grieving, how to deal with the grief, and basically how to get through it, and some techniques, because my whole perspective is from the fact of the continuation of life. I mean, for me, the only way I can get through my grief is by knowing that my daughter is still with me, that I will see her again. And Shayna actually drives everything that I do. And Shayna's come through several mediums and said, Daddy, you got to write the book. Daddy, you got to do the website. Daddy, you got to do more. So everything I do is for her. So backtracking a little bit, about 5 days after Shayna passed, I started a blog. I don't even know why I started it, but I started a blog on her behalf, basically. So it's kind of an open diary, just to kind of, kind of document my grief journey. So I was planning on turning that into a book, and that actually has not happened yet. This book kind of came about in the meanwhile. And then about, 3 or 4 months ago, I decided to start my life coaching and grief partnering practice. So I've got the website up, and I'm doing that to try to reach out to more people. So that's kind of the journey in a nutshell, over the last 4 years or so. The reception for the book so far has been really good. I'm extremely pleased with it. The reception, I'm pleased with the fact that the book seems to be really helping people. I'm hoping it'll be like a handbook that people can, quickly read, something that you can give to someone that's in grief, and that it'll be of service. It's interesting because we had someone come into our home right after Shayna passed, and she was extremely, extremely helpful. I mean, it really helped us get through those early days. But I remember one thing she said to me specifically. She said, when people use euphemisms, I've realized they haven't accepted the fact that the person has died. And when they can finally start using the word dead, that's when I know that they've accepted the fact that the person has died. You'll find rarely will I use the word died or dead. I do accept the fact that Shayna's body died. Shayna's body stopped functioning, but the grief counseling that I do, and my belief is based on the continuing bonds approach, which is a relatively new approach in grief counseling. It was the kind of get over it thing, that the separation, and at best, even with my Christian background, my Christian faith is either the dead are asleep or they're way off in heaven somewhere. They have no knowledge of us. We can have no knowledge of them. There is to be no communication. And I have seen personally in the last 4 years how much this continuing bonds thing really helps people, especially parents that I deal with, to be able to contact their loved ones, to know that they're still with us, that they're still involved with us, that we will physically see them again once we close these eyes and open our eyes on the other side. But so I think it's very important to have this type of work out there for people, because I know it's more effective. There have been studies that have shown that one medium reading can be more effective than several years of traditional counseling. Now, I went to a grief counselor 3 times after Shayna passed, but I was fortunate enough, because of the studies that I had done on near-death experiences, etc., I never doubted that Shayna was still with me. I never doubted that Shayna, I wouldn't say I knew she was with me. I knew she continued to exist. I didn't really know how close that she was going to remain with me. But I remember going to this grief counselor, and I went to see him a couple of times, and after the 3rd time, I'm like, I don't think I need to come back anymore. He said, I don't think you do either, because I was actually kind of just telling him what I already believed, and that is what's gotten me through. So like I said, that's why I wanted the book to be able to do, was to tell people, what things actually. Grief2Growth, and it's the number 2. I can hold up a copy of here. It's not going to show up against my green screen, but it's Grief2Growth. The subtitle is Planted, Not Buried, and it's how to survive and thrive after life's greatest challenges. It's available on Amazon. It's available in Kindle format, and it's available in paper book. Ironically, I started off, I wanted to make this an audiobook, and the audiobook is taking the longest to get approved. So I'm hoping it's going to be available in audiobook within the next week or two. But it is available on Amazon, as I said, in both ebook format and in paperback.